After we climb through the icefall, we head towards middle camp, where we spend a few weeks acclimatizing. If you go too high too soon, you risk getting edema, which is where your lungs begin to fill with fluid, and that can kill you.
At middle camp, the climbers must begin to drink more water, which they get by melting snow. The dry air sucks moisture from each breath and also makes them cough. Coughing fits have left Sumiyo with 2 cracked ribs.
Whenever porters went back down to Paula at base camp, they brought her videos because, Paula wanted to see that I was okay. It was, after all, our honeymoon.
Let's see what we got.
Yeah, we're gonna have probably some sliced, lightly sautéed spam along with.
It looks like breakfast time at Dvan's base camp.
Damn.
That's pretty boring.
Because now I'm thinking about ice cream with chocolate and a little of green with the topping. Can be great.
Typical.
May 7th. After 5 weeks at 22,000 feet, the team has acclimatized. Each drop of blood can now carry more oxygen. They're ready to go for the top. But right now, the summit is being blasted by freezing hurricane-force winds.
Almost all year, storms and high winds make Everest unclimbable. But sometime in May, you may get a week of calm, clear weather, which then allows you to sort of sneak up to the summit. It was still very windy up high, so I chose to sit tight. It's not easy watching other teams going up and then wondering if perhaps you're missing your only chance of reaching the summit. Of the 12 other teams here, the largest is led by my good friend Rob Hall from New Zealand, a very experienced Everest climber. The memory of May 8th and the days that followed will haunt me forever. Heading up the steep, icy Lhotse face that day, we watched a column of over 50 climbers, including my friend Rob Hall. They faced a 3-day climb to reach the summit. At the time, even though I felt uneasy, I never suspected what a nightmare they were heading up into.
2 days later, most of the same climbers set out for the summit. Late on that fateful day, a fierce storm slammed into the upper part of the mountain without warning.
Over 24 climbers were scattered along the route to the summit. Many of them caught high on the mountain, much too high to get down safely.
In the final hour of daylight, a few climbers fought their way back to the chaos of high camp. But for the rest, it looked grim. People have been caught before in storms high on Everest, but very few have survived.
The stranded climbers ran out of bottled oxygen. As the wind chill dropped to 100 degrees below zero, 17 climbers were still trapped on the mountain, including Rob. When night fell, most of the climbers hunkered down, just hoping to survive the night. When Paula called me that night, she reminded me that Rob's wife, Jan, was 7 months pregnant. We were all struggling to face the fact that we had friends high on the mountain, in the storm, fighting for their lives, and that perhaps some of them weren't going to make it. I knew I wouldn't get much sleep. The next morning, we got word that 7 climbers were still missing. But one of the stranded climbers was still in radio contact, Rob Hall. He'd beaten the odds and survived a night of Arctic winds at 28,000 feet. Rob just couldn't find the strength to move, but he wasn't ready to give up.
and start moving. You got to pull yourself up over the
Talking
south
to Rob
point,
on the radio was
and then
tough.
start coming down. It's downhill from there.
There was nothing I
Got
could
a
do
couple
for him.
guys coming up.
I was at middle
Don't
camp,
respond. We want
and
you
he
to
was at
engage
least a
the
2-day
battery,
climb
all right?
away.
But you can't wait all day for him. You have to
Using
help
a
yourself.
makeshift
Going
radio
for it.
patch, we
But
then
keep
connected
moving. Start right
Rob with
now.
his wife Jan in New Zealand. When we heard them talking on the radio, I mean, we all lost it. We all started to cry. Later, they chose a name for their unborn child, and Rob went to sleep in sub-zero temperatures, but he didn't survive the night.
Just above the high camp, a climber named Beck Weathers had been out in the storm for over 22 hours. He had been left for dead by other climbers. And then, nearly blind, his hands literally frozen solid, Beck stood up, left his pack, and desperately tried to walk.
All I knew was that as long as my legs would run and I could stand up, I was going to move toward that camp, and if I fell down, I was going to get up. And if I fell down again, I was going to get up. And I was going to keep moving until I either hit that camp or walked off the face of that mountain.
Beck's teammates were certain he was lying dead in the snow, so they were pretty startled when he staggered into the high camp. Beck's life hung by a thread, but Ed was determined to rescue him.
The camera team put down their gear and followed me up the mountain into the storm. We just lost Rob. We sure as hell weren't going to lose Beck, too. He was so blind and so weak that we had to support him and physically place his feet in each step. But even with our help, Beck just didn't have the strength to get through the icefall. His frostbitten hands would have to be amputated, so time was critical. We had to get him out of there soon.
A helicopter rescue at over 20,000 feet seemed out of the question. Up here, the air is so thin that the blades have almost nothing to bite into. At any moment, the aircraft may lose lift and fall out of the sky. The only previous flight up here ended in a crash. But a Nepalese pilot named Colonel Madan KC decided to risk it. Even when the helicopter flew up above the icefall, Beck's survival was still very much in doubt.
The pilot had trouble setting down. No one knew if they would crash.
After the climbers loaded Beck in, the pilot struggled to lift off. Finally, he did.
As we flew away, the tears began to flow, and I was just so grateful to be alive. Colonel Madan, Ed, Beasters, the guys on the film crew, I literally owe them my life.
Yet, as remarkable as this rescue was, it could not dull the grief that settled over Everest after the worst disaster in the mountain's history. 8 people lost their lives in the storm.
We all went back down to base camp, and Paul and I held each other for a long time. The tragedies hit our team very hard, myself in particular, because Rob was a close friend. And it was very sad to think about his wife, who was 7 months pregnant and